The Hirogen leader's severed head rolled across the floor, coming to a stop at Greg Henderson's blood-splattered combat boots. No one fucks with human children and lives, not on Greg's watch. The shit had hit the fan 48 hours ago. Greg, humanity's toughest soldier, had been hauled before the Galactic Council. Those pasty alien fucks never brought good news. "Henderson, we have a situation," the Andorian counselor said, his antennae twitching. "Hirogen terrorists kidnapped a human child from New Jamestown Colony. They're threatening to execute her unless we release their imprisoned militants." Greg spat on the council floor. "Cowards. They think targeting kids proves they're tough." "The Hirogen believe humans are weak," the Vulcan representative stated. "A simple species easily cowed by displays of force." "Do they want to see weak?" Greg growled. "I'll show them weak when I'm shoving my boot up their ass." The council members glanced at each other uncomfortably. "We need you to mount a rescue mission, Henderson," the Tellarite said, "but it must be covert. We cannot be seen violating Hirogen sovereignty." "You want me to clean up your mess but without any official backing?" Greg asked incredulously. "Typical. When the galaxy needs its dirty work done, they always come crawling to humanity." "You have 48 hours, the Andorian said, "before they kill the child. The Hirogen cannot be allowed to believe such tactics will succeed. It would embolden them." Greg stood, his jaw set. "I'll need a small team, 5 of humanity's best and a fast-fucking ship." "Granted," the Vulcan said, "but Henderson, there can be no trace if you fail." Greg was already turning to leave, cracking his knuckles. "Failure ain't in my vocabulary, counselor. Time to show these Hirogen why you don't fuck with human children." He had a little girl to save, and a powerful message to send, written in Hirogen blood. The galaxy was about to learn what weak, inferior humans were truly capable of. Back on his ship, Greg handpicked his strike team, 5 of humanity's most lethal warriors. There was Zoe, explosives expert and mistress of stealth; grim-faced Dex, a master of hand-to-hand combat; Hero, their unparalleled marksman; and the twins, Ajax and Thorn, unrivaled in their infiltration skills. Just as Greg finished the briefing, an encrypted message pinged on his datapad. It claimed to have intel on the hostage's location. The source was unknown, and the coordinates pointed to a seedy bar on Krolvac Station, a notorious smuggler's den. This reeked of a trap. Greg couldn't risk his team. He'd check it out alone. "Hold tight," he told them. "Got a lead to investigate. Be ready to move on my signal." Krolvac Station was a shithole, crawling with the galaxy's dregs. The bar was worse, packed with scarred thugs and shady dealers. Greg's hand never left his blaster as he shouldered through the crowd. A cloaked figure beckoned from a dark corner. Greg approached warily. The figure lowered his hood, revealing mottled Hirogen features. "I am Zorlak," he rasped. "I have information you need." Greg's finger tightened on the trigger. "Give me one reason not to ventilate you right now." "Because I defected from Pryler's group. His cruelty sickens me. I want to help you save the child." Greg paused. A defector could be invaluable. "Talk." Zorlak produced a data chip. "The girl is held on a fortified base, hidden in the Zorphos belt. Here are the coordinates, layout, security codes, everything you'll need." Greg loaded the data, frowning. The base was a damn fortress. Why's a Hirogen growing a conscience now? "Pryler has lost his mind. Suspects, traitors everywhere. It's only a matter of time before he kills the child. You must hurry." Blaster fire erupted as a pack of armed Hirogen stormed the bar. Zorlak shoved Greg towards the exit. "Go, I'll hold them off." He opened fire, buying Greg precious seconds to escape. Greg raced back to his ship, the sounds of Zorlak's doomed last stand echoing behind him. No time to mourn the loss of a brave ally. He had the intel. His team was ready. It was time to bring the pain to Pryler and rescue an innocent girl. Time to remind the galaxy why you never fuck with humanity. Greg's strike team, composed of himself, demolitions wizard Max Briggs, tech guru Liam Holt and sharpshooter Jace Quinn, strapped themselves into the stealth ship's crash seats. Time was their enemy. They pored over every detail of the schematic Zorlak had provided, memorizing the layout of the Hirogen base. As the ship dropped out of warp on the outskirts of the Zorphos belt, Liam's fingers flew over his console, infiltrating the base's sensor net and blinding it to their approach. Max busied himself prepping a nasty surprise, a brace of explosive charges slaved to a remote detonator, insurance in case this op went sideways. Greg and Jace geared up, bristling with enough firepower to give any Hirogen patrol heartburn. Cloaking devices shimmered, rendering them invisible to the naked eye. Hero deftly piloted the ship into docking distance of the base's maintenance airlock. "Liam, feed those access codes and pop the hatch," Greg ordered. "Aye, sir, you're clear to proceed." The airlock cycled open with a hiss. Greg and Jace slipped inside on silent feet, moving through the darkened maintenance corridors like ghosts. Hirogen guards stomped past on patrol routes, oblivious to the human wraiths weaving between them. Following the map's winding path, they descended level by level, homing in on the detention block. They were close now. The final corridor was just ahead. That's when all hell broke loose. Alarms shrieked, and emergency lights bathed the halls in crimson. Pryler was onto them. "Shit, Liam, he knows we need a distraction now," Greg barked into his comm. "I've got you covered, Max. Light 'em up." The deck plates shuddered as Max's charges detonated across the base, sowing chaos and panic in their wake. Smoke billowed and Hirogen soldiers scrambled to respond. Greg and Jace capitalized on the bedlam, sprinting for the detention block, stealth abandoned. They stacked up on opposite sides of the door, weapons primed. Jace hit the release and they stormed in, guns blazing. The guards never stood a chance, cut down before they could even reach for their rifles. Greg charged to the sole-occupied cell, sighting the small, terrified human boy within. Ethan. He was alive. Greg's hacking tool made short work of the lock, and the cell door scraped open. "Hey, kid, I'm Greg. We're getting you out of here. Stay close and keep your head down, okay?" The boy nodded mutely, clinging to Greg as he and Jace blasted their way back out of the block. Smoke choked the corridors now, emergency klaxons howling. They sprinted for the exfil point, Ethan sheltered between them. "Almost there," Jace shouted over the din. "Just a little further." And then they were out, stumbling into the hangar bay. The stealth ship waited, Liam gesturing frantically for them to hurry. Safety was just a few dozen meters away. Greg's blood froze as dozens of Hirogen shimmered into view, weapons leveled at the humans. They were surrounded. Pryler strode forward, malevolence twisting his features. "Leaving so soon? And after all the trouble I went through arranging this little reunion?" Greg pushed Ethan behind him, shielding the boy with his own body. He locked eyes with Pryler, hand dropping to the pistol at his thigh. The Hirogen's gaze promised murder. "I'm going to savor killing you, human, but first you can watch the child die." Greg's fingers curled around his sidearm's grip. There was only one way this could end. Pryler's finger tightened on the trigger. "On my mark—" "Wait," Greg shouted. "You shoot us, you'll never find out who betrayed you." Pryler snarled but hesitated. "Speak quickly, human." Greg's mind raced, playing for time. Behind Pryler, Liam's fingers danced over his wrist computer, face tight with concentration. "Your security's compromised, Pryler. How do you think we got in? We couldn't have done it alone." Pryler's eyes narrowed. "Impossible, my men are loyal." "Are they? Someone gave us your base's location, your codes, your patrol routes. It's all been fed to us by one of your own." The Hirogen leader scanned his troops, suspicion twisting his features. His finger eased off the trigger a fraction. "You're lying. A trick." Greg shook his head. "Search your feelings, Pryler. You've suspected it yourself, haven't you? The signs were there." Pryler wavered, uncertainty flickering across his face. His aim drifted a hair off target. Greg held his breath. Almost. Liam stabbed a final command into his computer. The hangar bay lurched. Pryler and his guards yelped as they floated into the air, weapons tumbling from their grasps, artificial gravity disrupted. "Go!" Greg bellowed. He scooped up Ethan and sprinted for the ship. Max and Jace laying down covering fire as Liam scrambled up the ramp. Hirogen blaster bolts sizzled past, barely missing them. They leapt aboard, Liam sealing the hatch. Max and Jace strapped in, hands flying over the controls. The ship roared to life, thrusters flaring. On the hangar deck, Pryler thrashed furiously, swimming through the air towards a floating rifle. He snagged it and took aim at the fleeing vessel. The gun kicked, and a tiny disc attached to the hull as the ship blasted out of the bay, engines screaming. "Punch it," Greg yelled, holding a shaking Ethan close. The ship hurtled into warp, stars stretching into lines as they made their escape. In the cockpit, Liam slumped back in his seat, letting out a shuddering breath. They'd made it. Max frowned at his console. "We've got a problem. Pryler tagged us with a tracker. He'll know exactly where we're going." "Can you remove it?" Greg asked. "I can try. Might take some fancy flying, though." Greg carried Ethan to the small med bay, setting the boy down gently on the cot. He grabbed the med kit and started tending to the child's cuts and bruises. "You're safe now," he said softly. "I promise we're going to get you home." Ethan looked up at him, eyes haunted. "You don't understand. I heard Pryler talking. He's going to attack New Riverside Colony, wipe it out, to punish you for rescuing me." Greg's blood ran cold. New Riverside, one of the largest human settlements in the sector, tens of thousands of civilians. If Pryler made good on his threat. He keyed the ship's comm. "Liam, get me a line to the Galactic Council now. They have to warn New Riverside." "On it, boss." A moment later, the Tellarite Councillor's face filled the screen, scowling. "Henderson, what's the meaning of this? Why have you—" "No time," Greg snapped. "The Hirogen are going to attack New Riverside Colony. You have to mobilize the defenses there immediately." "What? How do you know this? Why should we believe—" Ethan pushed forward, facing the screen. "Because I heard them planning it. Pryler said he was going to make an example of the colony. Please, you have to stop him." The councillor balked at the sight of the rescued child. He turned away, conferring urgently with someone off-screen. When he looked back, his expression was grim. "We'll send word to New Riverside. They'll begin evacuations and bolster their defenses. If what the boy says is true—" "It is," Greg said flatly, "and we're heading there now. We'll do whatever we can to stop Pryler." "I'm afraid that won't be possible, Henderson." The councillor held up a datapad. A news article splashed across it. "Pryler is claiming you and your team have gone rogue, that you kidnapped the human child. There are warrants out for your arrest." Greg gaped at the screen in disbelief. "That twisted Hirogen bastard." "Councillor, you know that's a lie. We rescued—" "It doesn't matter what I believe," the Tellarite snapped. "If you show your face at New Riverside now, you'll be shot on sight." Jace cursed viciously. Liam and Max exchanged stricken looks. Greg's fists clenched, a red haze descending over his vision. Pryler had outplayed them. "So that's it then. We're supposed to let him slaughter an entire colony like hell." "You'll do nothing," the councillor said sharply. "You'll turn yourself in to the nearest authorities and let us handle this." "Like you handled protecting Ethan in the first place," Greg snarled. "Not a chance. Pryler's going down and we're the ones who are going to do it." He cut the connection savagely, a muscle ticking in his jaw. Ethan looked up at him, eyes wide and frightened. "What do we do now?" the boy asked in a small voice. Greg met the gazes of his team, saw the same steely determination reflecting back at him. They were in this together, no matter the cost. "Now," he said grimly, "now we go save New Riverside and we make damn sure Pryler never hurts anyone again, no matter who tries to stop us." He turned to Liam. "Plot a course for the colony. Max, see if you can get that tracker off our hull. Jace, inventory our weapons and gear." As the team jumped to follow his orders, Greg laid a gentle hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Strap in, kid. This is going to be a bumpy ride, but I swear to you, I won't let Pryler win. Not this time. Not ever again." The ship leapt into warp once more, racing towards an uncertain future, an impossible fight. but Greg had meant what he said to the Galactic Council all those days ago. Failure wasn't an option, not when innocent lives hung in the balance. Pryler had picked the wrong humans to fuck with, and now he was going to learn that lesson the hard way. Greg's ship streaked through the atmosphere of New Eden, the human colony they'd fought so hard to warn. But instead of a hero's welcome, they were met with a barrage of warning shots from the colony's automated defense systems. "What the hell?" Max growled, banking hard to evade the incoming fire. "They're shooting at us!" Liam's fingers flew over his console, his face grim. "The Council's labeled us as fugitives. Pryler's lies have reached New Eden. They think we're the enemy." "Shit," Greg spat, mind racing. They couldn't abandon the colony, but they couldn't help if they were locked up, or worse. "Take us down on the outskirts. We'll have to go in quiet." The ship settled on the edge of the sprawling colony, hidden amongst the dense foliage. Greg turned to Ethan, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Stay with the ship. If anything happens, you take off, understand?" Ethan nodded, eyes wide with fear and determination. "I won't let you down." Greg and his team slipped out into the night, the weight of their mission heavy on their shoulders. They had to find a way to clear their names and expose the truth before Pryler's attack doomed them all. Moving through the shadows, they made their way to the seedier part of the colony, where Greg knew they might find help. He led them to a nondescript door, knocking in a specific pattern. A panel slid open, revealing a pair of wary eyes. "The hell do you want?" "Jacob, it's Greg. I need your help." A pause. Then the door opened, revealing a grizzled older man. His eyes widened as he took in Greg's haggard appearance. "Jesus, kid, you look like shit." "Feel like it too," Greg said, ushering his team inside. "Jake, I need you to listen. Everything the Council is saying about us, it's a lie." Jacob led them to a cluttered room, pouring glasses of amber liquid. He handed one to Greg, his gaze searching. "Start from the beginning." Greg laid it all out. The rescue mission, Pryler's treachery, the Council's betrayal. He played the recording of Ethan's warning about the impending attack. Jacob scrubbed a hand over his face, the lines of his weathered features deepening. "Christ, Greg, I don't even know where to start." "You know I wouldn't come to you if I had any other choice," Greg said quietly. "But we're running out of time. Pryler's going to hit New Eden, and hit it hard. We have to stop him. And to do that, we need to clear your names," Jacob finished, his eyes hardening with resolve. "All right, I've still got some contacts in the intelligence community. Let me see what I can dig up." As Jacob worked his back channels, Greg and his team prepped their gear, a coiled tension running through them. Every moment that ticked by was a moment closer to disaster. Hours later, Jacob called them over, his face lined with exhaustion and grim satisfaction. "I've got something. Councillor Zalax, the Zorgian. Turns out he's been in bed with Pryler for months, funneling weapons, intel, you name it. And when you started getting close, he's the one who turned the Council against you." "That traitorous bastard," Jay snarled, his fist clenching. "When I get my hands on him—" "We need proof," Greg cut in, his mind whirring. "Something ironclad that not even the Council can ignore." Jacob nodded, bringing up a star map. "My sources say Zalax is meeting with Pryler in person, on this remote moon. If you could get eyes on that—" "We'd have them dead to rights," Greg finished, a predatory glint in his eye. "Gear up, we're going hunting." The moon was a barren rock, devoid of life or atmosphere. Greg and his team moved in silence, the void of space pressing in around them. They approached the coordinates Jacob had provided, a nondescript structure jutting from the crater-scarred surface. Liam tapped commands into his wrist computer, his voice crackling over the comm. "I'm in their security system. I've got eyes on Zalax and Pryler. Patching it through now." The two figures resolved on their HUDs, huddled in conversation. Zalax's face was taut with anger, his words clipped. "I've done everything you asked. The humans are on the run. Their credibility is shot. What more do you want?" Pryler loomed over the Zorgian, his bulk menacing. "I want them dead, Counselor. I want to mount Greg's head on my wall. I want humanity to pay for the humiliation they've dealt me." "And they will," Zalax soothed. a sickly smile on his features. Once your forces lay waste to New Eden, the Council will have no choice but to sanction a full-scale war against the human colonies. Humanity's days are numbered. Greg signaled to his team, fury pounding in his veins. They moved as one, bursting into the room in a blur of motion. "Freeze! Hands where I can see them!" Pryla roared, lashing out with a vicious backhand that caught Jace across the face, sending him crashing to the ground. Zalax scrabbled for a weapon, but Max was on him, wrenching his arms behind his back. And then all hell broke loose. Hidden Hydrogen soldiers poured into the room, plasma fire stitching the air. Tables shattered, and equipment sparked as Greg and his team dove for cover. "It's a trap," Liam yelled, popping up to snap off a shot that took a Hydrogen in the throat. "They knew we were coming." Greg cursed, ducking as a plasma bolt sizzled past his ear. Jace was back on his feet, blood streaming from a gash on his forehead, his rifle barking as he put down 2 more soldiers. Max grappled with a hulking Hydrogen, his knife flashing in a brutal dance. The alien howled as the blade found its mark, buried to the hilt in its chest. And through it all Liam kept recording, his camera trained on Zalax and Pryla, as they tried to flee in the chaos. "We have to get out of here," Greg roared over the din of battle. "Fall back to the ship." They fought their way out, a running battle that left the corridors littered with Hydrogen corpses. Plasma scorched the walls, and the acrid stench of burning flesh choked the air. They piled into the ship, Liam's hands shaking as he pounded the controls. The engines roared and they leapt into the void, plasma fire chasing them as Pryla's ships gave pursuit. Max manned the rear guns, his face set in a rictus of concentration as he returned fire. The Hydrogen ships scattered, but kept coming, harrying them as they fled. "Liam, tell me you got it," Greg panted, his armor scored and blackened. In answer, Liam brought up the recording, Zalax and Pryla's damning words echoing through the cockpit. A savage grin split Greg's face. "Send it to the Council, send it to everyone." Across the galaxy, screens lit up with the truth of Zalax's betrayal. The Zorgian's face drained of color as he was seized by his fellow councillors, their expressions morphing from shock to rage. And on New Eden, the soldiers lowered their weapons as the transmission played, the weight of their mistake hitting them like a hammer blow. But there was no time to savor the victory. Pryla's ships filled the sky over the colony, disgorging waves of Hydrogen soldiers bent on slaughter and destruction. Plasma fire lit the night as the battle was joined, the colony's defenses struggling to repel the onslaught. Civilians ran screaming as buildings exploded and burned, the scent of death heavy in the air. Greg and his team plunged into the fray, rallying the beleaguered defenders. Max lobbed grenades into the Hydrogen ranks, thinning their numbers. Jace clambered to the top of a shattered wall, picking off alien soldiers with merciless precision. And Greg fought like a man possessed, his rifle bucking in his hands, his armor slick with blood, both human and Hydrogen. He battled his way to the heart of the colony, where Pryla stood amidst the carnage, roaring his challenge. The Hydrogen leader's eyes blazed with madness and hate, a twisted mirror of the rage that burned in Greg's heart. They met in a clash of titans, fists and blades, and the raw fury of 2 races locked in a primal struggle for survival. Around them the battle raged, a microcosm of the war that had brought them to this bloody pass. Human and Hydrogen, locked in a dance of death, the fate of a world hanging in the balance. Greg poured every ounce of his strength, his skill, his unrelenting will into the fight. For Ethan, for New Eden, for every human soul that looked to the stars and dared to dream. He would not fail. He could not. The Hydrogen would learn the depths of humanity's resolve and the terrible price of their enmity. With a roar of fury, Pryla launched himself at Greg, their bodies colliding in a brutal clash of flesh and bone. Greg staggered back, tasting blood, but he refused to yield. He met Pryla's onslaught with a flurry of his own blows, striking at the Hydrogen's injured side. Around them, the battle raged on, plasma fire scorching the air as human and Hydrogen forces clashed in a desperate struggle for survival. Max and Jace fought their way through the chaos, leaving a trail of broken bodies in their wake as they made for the Hirogen command ship. "Charges set," Max yelled over the din, ducking as a plasma bolt sizzled past his ear. "Let's get the hell out of here." They raced back towards the colony's defenses, the ground shaking beneath their feet as the command ship exploded in a blinding flash of light. Hirogen soldiers scattered, their formation broken, their resolve wavering in the face of the humans' defiance. In the colony's control room, Liam's fingers flew over the console, sweat beading his brow as he fought to bring the defense grid online. Ethan crouched beside him, relaying intel on the Hirogen's movements, his young face set with grim determination. "I'm in," Liam crowed, slamming his hand down on the final key. The colony's plasma turrets thrummed to life, swiveling to target the Hirogen forces with deadly precision. The tide was turning. But Pryler was not finished yet. He fought with the strength of a madman, his blows raining down on Greg like hammers. Greg's vision blurred, his body screaming in agony, but he pushed through the pain, driven by the knowledge that everything depended on him. In the control room, Ethan saw the Hirogen's final desperate gambit, a hidden bomb primed to detonate, to reduce the colony to ash and take the humans with it. With a cry of warning, he lunged for the door controls, sealing the room just as Pryler broke away from Greg and made his run. Max and Jace, battered but unyielding, arrived just in time to see Pryler's last charge. Max moved without hesitation, throwing himself at the Hirogen leader, grappling with him even as Pryler's finger scraped the detonator. They disappeared in a blinding flash, the explosion throwing Greg and Jace back, the heat searing their skin. When the smoke cleared, there was no sign of Max or Pryler. Only a blackened crater and the bitter tang of sacrifice. Ethan's distress call had been heard. Council ships darkened the sky, disgorging fresh troops to secure the colony and hunt down the remaining Hirogen. But for Greg and his team, the cost had been high. Too high. They gathered in the control room, nursing their wounds, mourning their fallen comrade. Max had given his life to save them all, to give humanity a fighting chance. His sacrifice would not be forgotten. Greg looked to Ethan, to the brave boy who had endured so much and yet never wavered. "It's over," he said softly, placing a hand on the child's shoulder. "You're safe now. We all are, thanks to you and Max." But even as the words left his lips, Greg knew that this was only the beginning. The Hirogen had been beaten back, but they would return, hungering for vengeance, and there would be other threats, other enemies waiting in the darkness between the stars. Humanity would need warriors like Max, like Jace and Liam and Ethan, like Greg himself. They would be the shield, the sword, the unyielding defenders of their species, for as long as it took, whatever the cost. Greg looked out over the scarred battlefield, to the stars glittering cold and bright above. "We're not done," he whispered, a promise and a vow. "Not by a long shot. The galaxy's a dangerous place, but it's ours to protect, ours to claim, and we'll never stop fighting for it." The battle was over. The war had just begun, but humanity would not face it alone, not as long as heroes like Greg Henderson and his team stood ready to answer the call, to light the darkness and defend the innocent, no matter the odds, no matter the cost. The battle-scarred streets of New Eden slowly returned to life as the survivors emerged from the rubble, their faces etched with a mix of grief and relief. Galactic Council ships descended from the sky, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight as they disgorged teams of medics and engineers to aid in the recovery efforts. Greg stood amidst the ruins of the colony's central plaza, his armor scorched and dented, his eyes haunted by the memory of fallen comrades. Beside him, Jace and Liam leaned heavily on each other, their wounds hastily bandaged, their expressions grim. A hush fell over the crowd as a sleek council shuttle landed, its ramp lowering to reveal a delegation of high-ranking officials. At their head strode Councillor Zoran, his robes billowing in the breeze, his face lined with sorrow. "People of New Eden," he began, his voice amplified by hidden speakers, "today we gather to honor the sacrifices of those who fought and died to defend this colony. and to recognize the bravery of a team of humans who went above and beyond the call of duty to save countless lives. He turned to Greg and his team, his eyes shining with respect. Greg Henderson, Jace Quinn, Liam Holt, and Ethan, your actions here will not be forgotten. You have the gratitude of the Galactic Council and all the peoples of the galaxy. The crowd erupted in cheers, their voices rising in a chorus of appreciation. Greg nodded solemnly, his throat tight with emotion. And to Max Briggs, Zoran continued, his voice heavy with grief, who made the ultimate sacrifice to save this colony. His bravery will be remembered for generations to come. Tears streamed down Liam's face as he gripped Jace's hand, the loss of their friend a raw wound in their hearts. Greg bowed his head, silently vowing to honor Max's memory with every breath he took. As the ceremony concluded, and the crowd began to disperse, Greg caught sight of a small figure pushing through the throng. Ethan, his face streaked with tears, threw himself into Greg's arms, his small body shaking with sobs. "I don't want to leave you," he choked out, his voice muffled against Greg's chest. "You're my family now." Greg's heart clenched as he held the boy close, torn between his duty and his growing affection for the brave child. "You have to go back to your parents, Ethan," he said softly. "They need you, and you need them." Ethan pulled back, his eyes fierce with determination. "I'll go back, but I'm not saying goodbye. I'll see you again, Greg, I promise." Greg smiled despite himself, ruffling the boy's hair. "I know you will, kid. You're a tough one." As Ethan reluctantly allowed himself to be led away by his overjoyed parents, Greg turned to his team, his expression hardening. "We can't rest yet," he said grimly. "We just received word from the Council. A Hyrogen splinter group, led by Pryla's second-in-command Zorax, has gone rogue. They're holed up on Zexo with a stolen neurokinetic amplifier." Jace cursed under his breath. "That device, it could let them control minds, right? Brainwash people into following them?" Greg nodded, his jaw tight. "Including kids. The Council thinks Zorax plans to build a new army of fanatics to continue Pryla's war. We've been tasked with stopping him." Liam shook his head, his eyes haunted. "After everything we've been through, I don't know if I have another fight left in me." "You do," a new voice said, calm and assured. They turned to see a woman striding towards them, her dark hair pulled back in a tight braid, her eyes glinting with fierce intelligence. "And you won't be doing it alone." "This is Kara Voss," Greg said by way of introduction. "A human telepath. The Council thinks her abilities could help us counter the amplifier's effects." Kara nodded to each of them in turn, her gaze assessing. "I've heard a lot about you," she said. "I'm honored to join your team." As they made their way back to their ship, battered but unbroken, Greg couldn't shake the feeling that this mission would be their greatest challenge yet. Zorax was driven by vengeance, armed with a terrifying weapon, and had nothing left to lose. But as he looked at his team, at Jace's fierce determination, Liam's unwavering loyalty, Kara's quiet strength, he knew they would face this threat as they had all others. Together. They were just about to board the ship when a small figure came hurtling out of the shadows, barreling into Greg with a thump. He looked down, shocked, to see Ethan clinging to his waist, his face set with stubborn resolve. "I'm coming with you," the boy said, his voice brooking no argument. "I heard about your mission. I can't let other kids suffer like I did. I won't." Greg opened his mouth to protest, but something in Ethan's eyes stopped him. A fire, a strength beyond his years. The mark of someone who had seen too much, endured too much to ever be a child again. He exchanged a long look with Jace and Liam, saw the same realization in their eyes. Slowly, reluctantly, Greg nodded. "Okay, kid, you're in. But you stay close, you follow orders, and if things get too hot, you get to safety. No arguments." Ethan's face lit up with fierce joy, a warrior's spirit in a child's body. "I won't let you down," he vowed. As the ship lifted off, carrying them towards Zexor and an uncertain fate, Greg couldn't shake the feeling that this mission would change them all irrevocably. The stakes had never been higher, the enemy never more ruthless. But as he looked at his team, old and new, bound by ties forged in the crucible of battle, he knew one thing with unshakable certainty. They would face whatever horrors Zorax had in store, and they would emerge victorious. For the sake of the innocent, the defenseless, the children forced to grow up too soon, for the memory of Max and all those who had fallen. Failure was not an option, not now, not ever. The Hyrogen had picked a fight with the wrong species, the wrong team, and they were about to learn, once again, the true depths of human resolve. The ship streaked through the void, a silver bullet aimed at the heart of darkness, and within its hull, a band of warriors prepared for the fight of their lives. The battle for New Eden was over. The war for the galaxy's soul had just begun. Greg's ship shuddered as it pierced Zexo's atmosphere, alarms blaring in the cockpit. On the view screen, a scene of utter devastation unfolded, once thriving cities reduced to rubble, fires raging unchecked across the landscape. Zorax's army rampaged through the streets, a nightmarish mix of races and ages, their eyes blank and soulless as they attacked the terrified populace. "My God," Kara breathed, her face ashen. "He's using the amplifier on children." Ethan's fists clenched, his young face hardening with resolve. "We have to stop him." Greg nodded grimly, the weight of their task settling heavily on his shoulders. "Liam, Jace, focus on evacuation and recon. The rest of us will infiltrate Zorax's stronghold and destroy that damn device." The team split up as they hit the ground, Liam and Jace peeling off to coordinate the civilian rescue efforts. Greg, Ethan, and Kara pushed towards the heart of the chaos, the towering spire of Zorax's fortress looming in the distance. Progress was slow, every step a battle as they navigated the war-torn streets. Brainwashed soldiers attacked in waves, their weapons flashing in the smoky air. Kara's telepathic abilities proved invaluable, allowing her to sense the enemy's movements and shield the team from detection. "On your left," she shouted, and Greg pivoted, his rifle barking as he dropped a mind-controlled Krogan mid-charge. Ethan darted ahead, his small size and agility letting him slip through gaps in the enemy lines. He disabled a group of soldiers with a series of precise strikes, his training with the team paying off in spades. Finally, they reached the base of the spire, the entrance heavily guarded. Kara closed her eyes, brow furrowed in concentration. "I can confuse their minds, but only for a few moments." Greg readied his weapon, jaw set. "A few moments is all we need." The guards stumbled, clutching their heads as Kara's telepathic assault hit. The team surged forward, cutting through their disoriented ranks and into the stronghold proper. Inside was a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, crawling with Zorax's fanatical followers. Progress became a brutal room-by-room slog, each hard-won inch paid for in blood and sweat. At last they reached the central chamber and stopped dead in their tracks, horror etched on every face. Dozens of children wired into the pulsing neurokinetic amplifier, their small bodies jerking and twitching as Zorax's will overwrote their own. And there among them, Lila, Ethan's friend, her once bright eyes now dull and lifeless. "You monster!" Greg snarled as Zorax's leering face filled a view screen. "They're just kids!" "They're weapons," Zorax sneered. "My weapons, and you've walked right into my trap." With a malevolent chuckle, he revealed the amplifier's cruel fail-safe. Any attempt to destroy it would fry the helpless children's minds. "You have a choice, human," Zorax taunted. "Surrender and watch them become my unstoppable army, or kill them and live with that blood on your hands." Greg wavered, his weapon lowering a fraction. To surrender was unthinkable, but to murder these innocent children. Ethan stepped forward, his young voice ringing with determination. "Hook me up to it. I can reach them. I know I can. Lila and we have a connection. I can use that to break Zorax's hold." "No," Greg shook his head vehemently. "It's too dangerous. I won't let you risk—" "I have to," Ethan cut him off, eyes blazing. "I promised to protect other kids from suffering like I did. This is how." Greg closed his eyes, every instinct screaming in protest. But Ethan was right. It was their only chance. "Okay," he said heavily. "Okay, but I swear I'll find another way. Zorax doesn't win, not like this." As Kara helped Ethan jack into the amplifier, the boy's eyes rolling back as he entered the virtual hellscape of Zorax's making, Greg turned to the view screen, his expression thunderous. "You think you've beaten us," he growled, "but you don't know human resolve. We'll find a way to stop you and save these kids. That's a promise." Zorax just laughed, the sound cruel and mocking. "Good luck, human, you'll need it." Greg turned away, his mind racing. Somewhere in this fortress, there had to be a way to circumvent the failsafe, to free the children without killing them. He'd tear the place apart, circuit by circuit if he had to. "Kara, stay with Ethan," he ordered. "Keep him anchored, do whatever you can to help him get through to the others." The telepath nodded, her face set with grim determination, as she knelt beside Ethan's prone form. Greg keyed his comm, the link crackling to life. "Liam, Jace, I need you to hit Zorax with everything you've got. Buy us time to find a solution in here." "Acknowledged." Liam's voice came back, tense but resolute. "We'll keep these bastards off your back, just hurry." Greg signed off, squaring his shoulders as he faced the banks of alien machinery, his mind already dissecting, analyzing, looking for any weakness to exploit. He would find a way, he had to. For Ethan, for Lila, for every child Zorax had twisted into a tool of war. Failure was not an option. Not now, not ever. The battle for Zexor, for the very soul of the galaxy's youth, had begun. And Greg would see it through to the bitter end, no matter the cost. Ethan's eyes snapped open to a twisted hellscape, the mindscape of Zorax's making. The ground beneath his feet pulsed like living flesh, oozing corruption. The sky churned with sickly colors, casting an eerie glow over the nightmarish landscape. He pushed forward, steeling himself against the horrors that awaited. The first child he encountered was trapped in a cage of thorns, their face contorted in anguish. Ethan reached out, his touch gentle. "It's okay," he whispered. "You're not alone. We'll fight this together." Slowly the child's eyes cleared, the thorns withering away. One by one Ethan moved through the mindscape, freeing the enslaved children from their mental prisons. Each victory weakened Zorax's hold on the amplifier. But as he delved deeper, the world shifted, growing darker, more oppressive. At its heart he found Lila, encased in a twisted cocoon of shadows. Zorax's influence pulsed around her like a malignant heartbeat. "Lila," Ethan called, his voice cracking. "I'm here. I'm not leaving you." The shadows lashed out, slamming into him with searing pain. Zorax's laughter echoed in the void, mocking, taunting. But Ethan pushed back, his will an indomitable force. Outside, Kara gritted her teeth, sweat beading her brow as she poured her power into the link with Ethan. "He's found Lila," she reported, her voice strained. "But Zorax's hold is strong. He needs our help." Greg nodded grimly, his fingers flying over the console. "Keep that link open. We have to find a way to disrupt the amplifier without harming the kids." In the stronghold's depths, Liam and Jace moved like shadows, planting explosives at key junctures. "Charges set," Liam reported over the comm. "Ready to blow this place to hell." "Do it," Greg ordered. "We need that diversion now." The explosions ripped through the base, alarms screaming to life. In the mindscape, Ethan felt the shockwaves, saw the shadows around Lila flicker. "Fight it, Lila," he shouted. "You're stronger than him. We all are." With a roar of defiance, Lila burst free of the cocoon, her eyes blazing with newfound strength. The other children rallied around them, their minds united against Zorax's control. But the Hirogen mastermind wasn't finished. His form materialized before them, towering and terrible. "Foolish children," he sneered. "You think you can defy me? I am your master. Your minds belong to me." Ethan stepped forward, his small form radiating an aura of unwavering courage. "Our minds are our own, Zorax, and we choose to fight. We choose to be free." Power surged through the mindscape as the battle of wills commenced. Zorax unleashed a storm of psychic blasts, the children countering with a united shield of mental energy. In the amplifier chamber, Greg and Kara seized their chance. They lunged for the pulsing device, hands scrabbling for the connections. Zorax's soldiers, snapped out of their trance by the explosions, stumbled in confusion, firing wildly. Greg ripped at the wires, sparks scorching his fingers. Kara lashed out with her mind, shorting out the amplifier's systems. With a final desperate heave, they severed the last connection. The result was instantaneous. The amplifier overloaded in a blaze of searing light. In the mindscape, Zorax screamed in agony as the psychic feedback tore through him, shredding his mind. He crumpled, eyes vacant, drooling helplessly. The children sagged in relief, the world around them starting to dissolve. Ethan grabbed Lila's hand, a triumphant grin splitting his face. "Let's go home." They emerged from the mindscape to a scene of chaos and jubilation. The brainwashed soldiers blinked in confusion, weapons falling from nerveless fingers. Parents swept up their liberated children, tears flowing freely. Galactic Council ships darkened the sky, troop transports descending to secure the base. Zorax, a broken shell of a being, was dragged away in chains to face justice for his crimes. Greg caught Ethan up in a crushing hug, pride shining in his eyes. "You did good, kid, damn good." Surrounded by his team, his friends, the family he'd found in the midst of this nightmare, Ethan finally let himself cry. Tears of joy, of relief, of a battle hard fought and won. They had saved more than the children, more than this world. They had struck a blow for freedom, for the right of every being to choose their own path. And as the dust settled and the healing began, one thing was certain. The galaxy would never forget the name of Greg Henderson and his team, the heroes who had stared into the abyss and through sheer grit and indomitable human spirit had made the abyss blink. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council headquarters buzzed with excitement as dignitaries from across the galaxy gathered to honor Greg Henderson and his team. The heroes of New Eden, Zexor, and countless other worlds stood tall on the raised dais, their faces etched with a mix of pride and solemnity as they accepted the accolades bestowed upon them. Ethan, standing alongside his rescuers, his friends, his family, felt a swell of emotion as the counselors spoke of the team's bravery and sacrifice. His gaze drifted to the empty space beside Greg, a stark reminder of the price they had paid. Max's absence was a wound that would never truly heal. As the ceremony drew to a close and the attendees began to mingle, a hooded figure pushed through the crowd, making a beeline for the team. Greg tensed, his hand instinctively drifting towards his sidearm, but relaxed as the figure lowered her hood to reveal a familiar face. "Mom?" Ethan gasped, his eyes widening in shock. The woman, her features a mirror of Ethan's own, smiled softly. "Hello, my brave boy." She turned to Greg, her expression hardening. "Henderson, we need to talk privately." Greg, sensing the urgency in her tone, nodded curtly. He led the woman to a secluded alcove, his team falling into step behind him. Ethan, torn between joy and confusion, trailed after them. "You're not just a colonist, are you?" Greg asked, his voice low. Ethan's mother shook her head. "No, I'm a former Galactic Council intelligence operative, and I've been working to uncover a conspiracy that threatens everything we've fought for." She produced a data chip, pressing it into Greg's hand. The Hirogen attacks, Zorax's action, they were just the beginning, a mere prelude to a much larger plan. Greg frowned, turning the chip over in his fingers. "What plan?" "A secretive cabal, composed of powerful individuals from various races, seeks to destabilize the galactic order. They believe that through chaos and conflict they can seize control and reshape the galaxy in their image." Kara's face paled. "And the Hirogen, Zorax?" "Pawns," Ethan's mother said grimly, "manipulated and discarded in service of this cabal's goals, and they won't stop there. They'll sacrifice countless lives to achieve their ends." Liam cursed under his breath. "So what do we do?" Ethan's mother fixed Greg with a piercing stare. "You keep fighting. You unravel this conspiracy and bring the masterminds to justice, no matter the cost. Greg's jaw tightened, a muscle ticking in his cheek. He looked to his team, saw the resolve in their eyes, the unspoken agreement passing between them. They had come too far, sacrificed too much to turn back now. "We're in," he said, his voice steely. "We'll hunt these bastards down and make them pay." Ethan stepped forward, his young face set with determination. "I'm coming with you." Greg opened his mouth to protest, but Ethan cut him off. "I can't go back to being a normal kid, not after everything I've seen, everything I've done. I want to help. I need to." Greg exchanged a long look with Ethan's mother, saw the pride and the pain warring in her eyes. Slowly, reluctantly, she nodded. "Keep him safe," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Bring him home." Greg clasped her shoulder, a silent promise passing between them. He turned to his team, to his family, and saw the same fierce determination reflected in their faces. "Gear up," he said, his voice ringing with purpose. "We've got work to do." The team made their preparations in silence, each lost in their own thoughts, their own fears and hopes for the future. They said their goodbyes, hugged their loved ones tight, knowing that the road ahead was uncertain and perilous. As they boarded their ship, the sleek vessel that had carried them through so many trials and triumphs, Greg paused at the threshold, looking back at the world they were leaving behind. Jace clapped him on the shoulder, a wry smile tugging at his lips. "Having second thoughts, boss?" Greg shook his head, a rueful chuckle escaping him. "No, just reflecting on how far we've come and how far we still have to go." Liam, already strapped into his seat, flashed a grin. "Well, no one said saving the galaxy would be easy." "But we'll do it together," Kara said, her voice soft but filled with conviction. "As a team, as a family." Ethan, seated beside her, nodded solemnly. "For Max, for everyone we've lost and everyone we'll save." Greg felt a swell of pride, of love for these incredible people who had become his world. He took his seat, his hands firm on the controls as the ship hummed to life around them. "Let's fly," he said, and the ship leaped into the stars, carrying them towards an uncertain future, towards dangers untold and battles yet unfought. But as the vast expanse of space unfurled before them, as the weight of their mission settled on their shoulders, Greg felt a flicker of hope amid the uncertainty. They had each other. They had their purpose, and they would not rest until the galaxy was safe, until the shadows that threatened it were banished to the void. The true battle for the galaxy's future had only just begun, and Greg Henderson and his team would be there to see it through, no matter the cost. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.